What's up, Weebazoids? Welcome back to the Bucket Hat Power Hour, where Gus talks for way too long, and you get more than you bargained for 4 times a year. No more, no less. If you catch me on a fucking 5th time in a year, I must have time traveled or something. I don't know. I was kind of feeling the heart-shaped glasses from my last video, so I'm keeping them for this. Also, I'd like to apologize for not wearing my bucket hat in the last roundup. I'm ashamed of myself, and I will never live down the disgrace. But I intend to make up for it by continuing to wear the Phantom Thief bucket hat for the rest of the year. Even in my sleep. It will never come off of my head. Not much preemptive. We're just gonna go right into this one. We're finally gonna get to talk about the fucking unbelievable set of two-cour shows we had these past 2 seasons. Fucking wild. You know, like, I don't think we'll ever see another season with two-cours quite like we had this time around. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. We're gonna start with solo leveling. Now, I think solo leveling is quite an interesting project because I'm a man who has seen a lot of dungeon crawling, fantasy shows, fucking isekais. It feels like I've seen everything under the sun, and yet really, I'm probably only about like halfway through all of the trash shit on my watch list. So let's just not cut any corners, right? Solo leveling as like a story, as like a concept, and as like a just in terms of like world building and characters, is not any better or worse than any one of those, you know, lost in a crowd, run-of-the-mill fucking isekai dungeon crawler bullshits. It's got a big-ass world because it's a light novel that it can't really fully execute and tackle because there's just so much in the light novel that we'll never get to see in the anime. It's trying to build this huge world with a ton of characters that in the anime we'll never have any context for. They just are kind of there. And if you want to know more, you better buy the light novel, bucko. Alright? But Jesus Christ, damn does the show look good. I don't know if I can name another show based on a light novel that looks as good as this one does. In terms of visuals, especially animation, the choreography and the storyboarding for this is unreal. So frankly, you know, like, I think this show fucking spoils people, right? Because if people come into solo leveling and it's their first time watching some bullshit dungeon crawler isekai shit, it's not an isekai, but it's of the same sort of style and genre. If, you know, you have like a 15-year-old coming into this and this is their first time seeing something like this, you're like, oh fuck, solo leveling is so cool, I'm gonna watch more. And, you know, they're probably gonna be disappointed because there's not a single other show of this caliber, like in terms of genre or like style, like setting and stuff, that is as well put together as this one. Like, in terms of visuals, there's just, I can't think of one. Like, there's absolutely nothing special about any of these characters, any of the story. It's just all thrown together bullshit that doesn't really matter. If you're watching solo leveling, you're watching it for, well, the animation, but you're also probably watching it for the super edgy, overpowered protagonist. Like, Jinwoo, he's not any better or worse than any of the other overpowered ass bullshit motherfucker protagonists that I've seen. He just randomly, like, you know, you appreciate his bravery and his willingness to sacrifice for other people, but I mean, that's about it. You know, I do think his sort of transformation is, and you know, the feelings that he has one after, you know, post Second Awakening, I do think they're justified. So in that regard, he's an okay character, but I mean, fuck. Like, there's just nothing interesting about the guy. There really isn't. Like, it's just, he gets overpowered for no reason. Like, we don't know why he was granted this ability. You know, I get it's called solo leveling, but the way he interacts with other people is annoying most of the time. Yeah, there's just nothing special about this aside from the animation. Like, it's a very cool show and the fights are really fucking cool. But in terms of story progression, there's just nothing at all interesting about it at all. Like, I wish I could say there was, and like there are some interesting like elements, I guess, to the world building, like you know in light novels, right, where they build this huge world and there's all these different characters. Maybe some of them are watching the movements of the protagonist and observing them to maybe interact with them later in some way, and that kind of happens here, but it's the same run-of-the-mill shit. Like there's nothing special about it. So I just think the animation, this really spoils this genre of anime for everyone who is coming into it fresh, because there is no other show that of this style and overpowered protagonist that looks this good. But damn, is it cool! It's absolute props to the animators here. Fucking unreal shit. As it is, it's very good, and it's definitely one of those that's like carried by its animation. Because in terms of the story and the characters, there's nothing really special about it. But the characters aren't bad. Like, I'm not saying they're not bad, right? They're just, who cares? Like, I've seen this shit a million times. It's just, it looks very good. So, it's like that girl you see at a bar where you're like, man, I know if I talk to her, like, I'm just gonna have the same fucking going nowhere conversation I've had a gazillion times. But holy shit. She's hot. Did that make sense? Alright, Chain Soldier. This one was... okay. I kind of thought this was going to be dog shit. It wasn't. It really wasn't as bad as it's really not bad at all, actually, in actuality. And so Chain Soldier is a manga made... I'm pretty sure it's by the same creators as Akame ga Kill. I believe that's right, Akame ga Kill. So, I had some expectations going into this one. It wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. It's nothing special here, but I mean, it's well put together. It's well thought out. There's a pretty big, nice world here with some good characters around. Like, it is fairly, like, for what it is, it's fairly interesting, right? Like, it doesn't get too big for its britches at any point, right? Like Solo Leveling does. The amount of characters is very manageable, and it kind of keeps you on your toes. So I appreciate that about it. If you're in it for the fan service, you won't be disappointed. I do think like there's a ton of anime out there like this one where like you have a guy moving in with a bunch of girls who don't trust him initially, and he wins over their trust eventually. And I actually think this one is done pretty well. Like, I do feel like the main character, earns all of their trusts. Like, and the characters who do start out not liking him, I feel like are fairly justified. And maybe sometimes it happens pretty quickly, but for the most part, I think it makes sense and it works with the story. And even those characters like Himari, for example, I have their names pulled up. I'm learning. Himari has the rivalry with her sister. There are, elements to these characters beyond just they have a crush on the protagonist, or, they want to defend do their jobs well or get stronger. There are like some deeper elements to these characters. They're not super deep or anything, but again, for what it was, I really don't think it's that bad. Like, it's not gonna super impress you or anything, but it's fairly well put together. Like, the characters aren't bad. You do get to see like the main girl Kyoka, like she has a little backstory at the very end, so it doesn't really leave you hanging with too much. There's a good cliffhanger at the end, so I think they did announce season 2, so that's good. A very nice cliffhanger at the end. Seeing his sister get involved towards the end and like what happened to her, because we heard about his sister from the beginning. It's well put together. Like, it's nice. Like, it's for what it is, I thought it was pretty good. So I really can't complain too much. Like, it's not the greatest thing I've ever seen. I do probably think, like, if I really thought about it or like scrolled through my anime list, I might find that there are shows of this style that are better. But again, like, a lot of this is for the fan service, and it definitely delivers. So again, for a really fan service heavy show, it's really not that bad. It's better than some of the other fan service heavy shows, much better. Like, just overall more well put together, more like better executed. It's just solid, Like, I really can't complain. I thought it was gonna be dog shit. So, like, again, I don't dislike any of the characters. Like, even the sister, Himari's sister, like, who's annoying at first. Like, I like her. Yuki's sister played a nice role. Like, the world's pretty, like, you know, there's some good lore to the world. It's not bad at all. Good shit. Alright, A Sign of Affection. This is adorable. There's a little too much drama here for my personal taste, but again, I'm not a shoujo person. I'm definitely, like, stepping out of my element here. I'm not a big drama guy, but for the most part, this was adorable, and I really like how it handled... It's a very delicate situation, right, where you're handling a protagonist with a disability. I think the characters, like, their motivations to do what they do generally make sense. Like, I think the reasons that... here we go. Yuki and Itsuomi fall for each other totally makes sense given what we know about their characters. Even, like, some of the other characters, like the stupid other guy who waited too long, Oshi, his feelings, I feel like, are generally justified. I feel like all of the characters, like, feelings for whoever they have feelings for are justified. I like how Yuki is interacting with the world around her. It's very charming and endearing. Just overall very cute. Like, if you like romance anime, like, and that's your thing, you're gonna like this one. It's very sweet. I think it looks pretty good as well. Just solid all around. Like, I really don't know what else to say. Like, I just genuinely thought it was well handled. It's a delicate topic. It's a delicate sort of, like, you're kind of playing with fire a little bit. Having a protagonist with a disability, like, you could, you know, potentially misrepresent people, that kind of thing. I think this was handled very well. I think Yuki is a really endearing protagonist. So, big fan. Good shit. Alright, Hokkaido gals are super adorable. I really didn't expect this to be as charming as it was. As far as, like, sort of silly romance anime of this style go, this is, I actually feel like, one of the better ones. You know, you could include, like, More Than a Married Couples, fucking Rent a Girlfriend, in sort of like this style of, like, it's a manga and, you know, it may be a little trashy. Like, this is actually pretty compelling. I actually quite liked the characters in this one. It probably helps that the cast is kept fairly small as well. But yeah, like, overall, I think the way that, like, the interactions feel pretty natural. Like, probably helps that it's centered around gals who are just, that's kind of their thing. They're, like, you know, super outgoing and fun or whatever. Well, actually, that's really just Fuyuki. But point is, I didn't really expect to like this one, and I did quite a bit, actually. So, I mean, that's it, right? Like, the main character, I think, does a great job, like, sort of, I guess, acting as, like, almost the guide to the viewers, right? Because I don't think he's not too, like, nonchalant, right? Like, he's not too, like, super bold, but he's also not too much of a puss. Like, he's not a pushover, really. So he strikes a nice balance there, and overall, I like his interactions, and, you know, I think each of the girls kind of falling for him when they do, at least the main three, are pretty justified. Just generally really charming, decent characters, like Sayuri is another one, Akino, whatever her name is. Like, I think her little story where she kind of is not really super approachable, but she wants to make friends, and then Shiki's kind of like, you know, I'll game, quite literally, like, I'm game, it's time to start gaming, like, pretty charming stuff, like, and the things they do are, you know, unique to Hokkaido, where it's cold or whatever. Yeah, like, it does feel like it is a little distinct from a lot of other romance anime of its kind. So I really can't complain. I actually thought this was very charming. surprisingly. So if this is something more your speed, you'll probably like it quite a bit. So, hell yeah. They're super adorable or whatever. Fuck yeah. Okay, my instant death ability is so overpowered, no one in the other world stands a chance against me. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't what I got. I don't think it's bad. It's just kind of like, it feels really hastily thrown together in the context of the anime. I don't know how it is in the light novel, but it all feels really hastily thrown together, and there's just, again, the whole premise kind of makes this one uninteresting, right? Because you have a main character who literally can just kill whoever he wants on the spot, and literally with no limitations either, because it's kind of like he can kill your knee joints or whatever. Like, he can kill something very specific without actually killing people, so it really just makes everything completely uninteresting. There's no sense of stakes or anything. There's some character development, I guess, but like, mostly for the heroine girl, Danora, if you could even call it that. But like, the story progression is very like jumbled. It feels messy. A lot of characters don't feel like they matter. Like, even the world feels kind of all over the place. Like, the way they build the world, it just feels weird. And I think really the only thing that's done consistently well is like the development of the relationship between the main guy and Danora. Takato and Danora, like, their relationship I think is done okay. Like, at least it's consistent and it doesn't feel too rushed or too hasty, so fair enough. If you told me to try to remember anyone else other than like maybe the fucking the teacher girl from Takato's backstory, and the sage girl who appeared at the end, who like got really upset when she couldn't revive from Takato's ability, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And the ghost girl, I guess. But like, none of the other characters, like, they play a role in this story, but they don't really. It's just nothing. There's no other character of even remote importance. But I do appreciate that they sort of gave backstory. It's not really... I think he was an experiment, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't remember if they explained it exactly how Takato got his ability. But I do appreciate that he was... Like, we got shown the backstory with the teacher lady, with the hot teacher, who kind of was there for him in his childhood, and it kind of helped raise him a little bit and explain, don't just fucking kill everybody. And he kind of was super sheltered because of that. So I do sort of appreciate that about it. And like, if you looked, again, I think if you read the light novel, you'd probably find there's some pretty good substance to the world, but it just feels really hasty, like they're just plowing through everything, which just makes it not really interesting. So, again, I don't think it's that bad, but it's really just not, like, if you're gonna watch this, don't really expect to care that much. Because it doesn't really feel like there's anything worth caring about, because the protagonist Takato just plows through everything, and eventually, he just murders a ton of people. Like, whether or not they deserved it is debatable in some cases, but it's fine. Like, again, it's not abhorrent. I didn't hate it. I didn't really even dislike it. I just didn't really find it that interesting. Just the entire premise that it's built on just doesn't do it any favors. But the main characters aren't horrible. They're not bad, so whatever. Alright, Metallic Rouge. I'm a fan of ambitious anime original projects. I like, studios taking initiative and trying new things, but this one didn't quite land, did it? Again, this one kind of feels jumbled and messy. I wanted to like this one. I really did. And I do like it, sort of. But, again, the story progression doesn't feel right. It just doesn't really feel like I don't know what it is exactly, like, I can't think of the words, but the way the story progresses, it doesn't do the story it's trying to tell any favors, because I think it was at the end of, like, episode 9 or 10, and I was trying to, like, think about what had happened and try to understand the plot, and I took, like, fucking 5 or 10 minutes, like, just thinking about it, like, trying to understand what was going on, and I did come to a conclusion that made sense in my head, but I've already forgotten it. So, you can understand the plot, and, like, but it's, like, a very rough sort of outline of the plot, right? Like, you understand the very key points, but the way the story progresses, it just doesn't put any certain importance on any characters. It doesn't really contribute anything to a lot of scenes. Don't feel like they contribute much to the story they're trying to tell, and a lot of characters they build up to seem important, and then they're not. Because really the only characters that do end up being important are the main two girls. Like, that's it. Like, we get that there's, like, an uprising on Venus or whatever, and, like, they're trying to use the code to set the Neons free or whatever, but the key to the code is locked inside of Rouge or some shit like that. Like, it's not bad. It just didn't stick the landing. Stick the landing's a bad expression. In execution, stick the landing in terms of, like, the process, right? In terms of the creation process. Like, the execution of this just didn't stick. Like, it just didn't quite feel right. Like, whoever scripted this out was, like, on something. Because it didn't... a lot of the scenes just feel like they don't contribute anything to the story. And it's a lot of times it speaks... You know, key points are conveyed really vaguely, and, like, characters betray people for no reason, and, like, you don't really understand their motives at all because it's been unclear this whole time, and it just didn't really work. I wanted to like this one. I really wanted to be like, fuck yeah, this shit rules, but it just didn't. There was a disconnect in the creative process somewhere. I don't know where, but somewhat, like, whoever was making this, they didn't figure it out all the way. They were too hasty or something. But it does look good. A lot of the fight scenes are pretty solid, so fair enough. But if you try to understand, like, any of the lore about this world, it takes, like, active brain power. Like, you have to, like, fucking... Like, you have to crank your brain into overdrive. And I shouldn't have to do that. Right? Like, come on now. Okay, 7th time loop. I like the premise of this one, and I think it's okay. Like, again, I really don't quite feel qualified to speak on shoujo stuff like this. But I do think the main character, Riche, I think she's pretty endearing for the most part, and I like kind of how her knowledge from... I mean, she only talks about it really a few times here and there, but the knowledge from her previous lives affects what she does in this new timeline, in the previous 6 timelines. It's kind of, like, convoluted. Like, a lot of the story, what actually happens is, like, pretty convoluted, and it's based upon a lot of assumptions. Like, her actions are also based on a lot of assumptions that she had about Prince Arnold, from the previous 6 times that the guy killed her. So, yeah, but, like, none of the other characters really feel like they matter at all, but a lot of the things that Riche does, like, I feel like make her an endearing character. So if you know, gave enough of a shit to fucking try your hand and, like, really care about this, you'd probably really like this one, because I do think there's some substance to it, and I do sort of like how through this particular timeline Riche learns about what Prince Arnold is really like, and, you know, she can, like, try to work to stop him from inciting the war or whatever, where she eventually dies. And yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I do think it's solid. Like, I'm at least aware enough to realize that I think this is a good shoujo. You know, it's not really my thing. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm trying to get edumacated, right? Like, I'm trying to have some cultural edification and watch some shoujo. And this is one of those light novels which is part of the reason why I wanted to watch it. Like, I've seen this light novel in bookstores. I'm like, oh, shit. So, I wanted to give it a shot. And that's a lot of the reason why I watch shoujo stuff like this, because either I've, like, seen the light novels or I'm trying to get edumacated. But I don't really care much about the other characters besides, like, the main two. And a lot of the other ones, especially, like, Prince Arnold's brother, just were annoying. And even, like, the climax feels kind of... You know? Like, it didn't... Things were resolved, yes, but... There's definitely no excitement. Even really the romance kind of took a backseat, you know? Which is fine, but... Because I do think a lot of the stuff that Rouge does just makes her adds depth to her character. So that's good. But, whatever. Alright, The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. I actually thought this one was damn solid. Like, it's got a good sense of humor. The progression is well done. It's just a well put together story. The characters are at least pretty good, like, or decent to pretty good. Like, I think the one schmuck, Kazuki or whatever, I think he's the least interesting character out of the main three, but, like, even then, like, you know, there is some depth to the guy. Like, the main three characters, like, kind of struggle to adapt to the isekai and, like, try to figure it out in their own unique ways, and when they're finally, like, sent to the battlefield, it actually feels like a big deal because, like, they've been preparing for this. And it's even, like, a lot of the minor characters and are pretty good. Like, and I don't remember her name. Rose, the leader of the rescue squad. Like, her backstory where she lost a lot of her rescue squad friends, like, that makes her much more interesting, compelling character. I thought this one was just overall really good. Now, it hasn't ended yet as of the time of recording. It's going to end tomorrow, I think. But, I mean, it's just solid. Like, I really don't have any complaints. Like, any major complaints. I don't even know if I can think of a complaint. But, like, even a lot of, like, the training arcs, I don't think they last too long. I think they contribute to the character's depth and development, to Usato's depth and development. Their interactions with other characters never feel too forced or anything. It feels pretty natural and compelling and endearing. Even, like, the way they treat the Black Knight towards the end, like, it feels in character. You know, there's some, like, kind of things that keep you on your toes a little bit here in terms of the story. Like, this is a really solid isekai, I think. Like, there's just not much to complain about. I really, like, it's just really solid. Like, it's well put together, good shit. Like, I don't know how much, like, how many liberties, like, I don't know what kind of liberties they took when adapting from the light novel, but, man, like, just solid. Like, I think all of the things you would want in an isekai, like, at least, like, a kind of run-of-the-mill isekai, you get here. Like, when you have these, like, three characters, like, they do actually struggle to adapt, and, like, they, you know, they kind of have to work it all out in their own way. They're all different characters, and, you know, they have to struggle and train and get stronger in their own ways. It's... Man, it was good. It is good. It's still going. For another 12 hours or so. But yeah, fuck, man, good, surprisingly good shit. I liked it. Okay, the strongest tanks Labyrinth raids. I think I forgot this one earlier. Again, this one's just totally meh. This one was like, there are some things about it that I appreciated, right? Like, I don't think it's bad, but I just kind of am like, whatever. You know, like, the characters are not bad. I think the interactions are okay. Like, the way the way the main character and protagonist influences the world around him, it makes sense. And, like, it gets kind of stupid that he gets kicked out in the beginning because it feels completely unwarranted.
Like, you know, in other cases, I think it sort of makes sense, but like when the protagonist gets kicked out of the hero's party in like other shows, but in this, it's like, why? Like, there was no reason for it, because bro is literally doing his job and doing it well, so it's stupid inherently. And a lot of, like, the plot points, like, the actual story beats are just kind of weird. But, I mean, the introductions of, like, the sort of, like, the Demon Lord characters that end up becoming friends, I don't mind that too much. And, like, I think it at least contributes to the world building, I guess. But, I mean, for the most part, again, this feels kind of half-assed, you know? Because, like, even... You know, everything from, like, the romance angle feels... It's not even half-assed, it's, like, quarter-assed, the romance is. A lot of the battle scenes are, like, okay, right? Like, they're fine. But a lot of, like, the way they resolve the actual cases, it all comes down to the same fucking thing, where, like, the protagonist stores up energy in his shield and then fucking beats him up with it. That's it. There's really not much to this one. It's just kind of, like, whatever. Like, I guess it can be a comfortable watch if you're, like... 17 and stupid. But it's not bad, it's just like, whatever. Very meh.
Alright, Tales of Wedding Rings. I mean, this one's okay. This is one of, you know, remember when I said that Chained Soldier was better than a lot of the other fan service heavy shows? Here's one of them that wasn't quite as good. I do think the substance here is, like, okay, right? Like, I do think there's reason enough to care about the story in this, but I also don't, like, it feels a little bit rushed, and, you know, even if you want fan service, it feels like kind of half-assed on the fan service side of it too. Now that I'm criticizing things for having shitty fan service, like, the story that it's trying to tell, it conveys well, I think. Like, you get what's going on and all that, and I do think, like, the characters and their motivations are fine, but it also is just kind of like, it's also one of those, it feels a lot of the, like, things that would, like, attract viewers, you know, the fan service and the, like, the romance. It almost feels kind of forced, like, because, you know, like, if you take the wind of, the ring of wind from the elf girl, she has to marry you, and then you have to have sex. Like, that's just kind of an inherently stupid, you know, sort of premise. But it doesn't feel self-aware that it's stupid. Right? Because there are a lot of things that are like fan servicey that feel more self-aware. This one doesn't really feel self-aware. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't really think it's all that interesting. Like, if you've seen, like, any isekai, you've probably, like, you get it. You know, because none of the characters really even feel like they have much depth to them. Even the main girl, Crystal. I do think the main character, Sato, I do think he's alright. I don't really have much to complain about there. Like, I appreciate, like, his, you know, desire to grow stronger and all that nonsense. Like, it feels warranted, and, like, there's even, like, some lore to the world where, like, there's, like, some elf lady who was dating the grandpa, and, like, I don't know. Like there is some substance here, but it's just not all that interesting. I mean, if you want fan service, there are better shows than this, too. But, I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. Just really wasn't all that good, either. Okay, Dr. Elise. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. I kind of thought this was going to be more shoujo than it was. But wow, no, it's just this blonde lady going around being a doctor. That's it. That's it. That's what you get. You signed up for it, and that's what you got. So the romance and literally everything else takes a backseat to Elise knowing the symptoms of, like, every disease and fracture, compound fracture, bone destruction imaginable. Like, fuck. The amount of things I learned about, like, surgeries and shit in this show is, like, more than I've ever learned. Ever. Not that I was ever studying to be a doctor or a surgeon. And I'm assuming the information is correct. Probably. Considering she is operating on human beings, even if they're drawings. But, like, yeah, I do think, like, the sort of setup to it is fairly interesting. Like, I like, and it sets up Elise's motivations pretty well. But I mean, you know, and there's something to be said about, like, the charming nature of, like, a girl who's just trying to help in any way she can, and, like, this is the way she knows best how to help people. I appreciate that about it, but, like, there's literally not much here other than, like, Elise being really good at being a doctor, and then all the dudes falling in love with her because she's so dead set on that. Like, she's just very good at what she does, and everyone's like, oh, there's a genius doctor! What are we gonna do? A woman can't be a doctor? And they just choke and die. No. Yeah, I mean, fuck, dude. Like, I just realized there's a lot of this season. No, I do think it's alright. Like, again, I think it's fairly charming, and I do appreciate, like, the good-natured, you know, protagonist here, but it's not really all that interesting either. So.
Alright, The Witch and the Beast. Yeah, that's right. I forgot 3 different ones in my original recording. I also forgot to use the correct microphone. No, The Witch and the Beast was alright. Like, we've kind of seen an influx recently of, like, you know, maybe every other season there's, like, one anime that's, like, a little bit sort of off the beaten path, right? Where it's, like, a little edgy, maybe a little murder mystery-esque kind of thing. But, and so this is, like, the next in line, the next descendant of that sort of bloodline. And I think it's okay. I definitely feel like it's weaker than the last few. Like, Undead Murder Farce, I felt was better. Overall, like, it does have an interesting premise. Like, the whole idea of, like, being cursed by a witch and then having to, like, track down the original witch and, like, win her over, essentially, and get a smooch to dispel the curse works pretty well. And I do, it's the sort of position that Guido and his partner, both of their very unique positions that they're in, sort of work pretty well. And it's but, like, you know, even, like, from episode 1, like, you sort of get the deal, right? Because Guido shows off the whole kissing a witch and then getting his full original body back. Like, the premise is set up pretty nicely, and then even it kind of takes you for a bit of a ride, which I'm not sure how much of it really contributes much to the overall story, but, you know, it's not bad, because I do think namely the one with the girl who had her whole family was killed. Like, she's a pretty decent character, and the whole deal with the demon sword or whatever the fuck she was carrying with her, like, that's not a bad little arc. There's a lot of twists and turns there, and, you know, characters playing different roles and shit. I don't really know what the demon sword was trying to do at any point, but I'm not worried about his feelings. And even the main two, like, they work pretty nicely together. They have good, like, halfway decent banter. If they'd have better banter if Guido wasn't so single-minded, but that's not of concern. Like, it's alright. I do feel like it's generally weaker than the past few of this, like, style that we've seen, but it's okay. Like, this sort of, it does still have that unique vibe to it, right? Where it's very distinct. It feels very distinctly different and, like, murder mystery-esque compared to literally every other show in the whole season. So I appreciate that about it. And it does have some pretty decent character work, but again, I don't know if it was delayed, but it hasn't ended at the time of recording, so I don't know how to judge it fully. But for what it is, it's all right. The fighting is the fight scenes are high. It's just decent. Like, it's just pretty, you know, like, it's good. But it's just good, right? Like, that's the extent of it. So, if you like this sort of vibe, you'll probably like this one.
Okay, Villainous level 99. I may be the hidden boss, but I'm not the Demon Lord. This just wasn't that interesting. Like, I don't know how to say, when you start out with a character who's already strong, it kind of makes everything they do not really interesting, because you don't, it makes their fights not interesting. Like, even if you already know the hero's gonna win, at least, make me care. It makes their, relationships kind of uninteresting, because, you kind of already know exactly what's gonna happen. They're all gonna start off scared of her, and then they're gonna realize she's, this crazy woman who just is good-natured, but only cares about one thing, and, there are a gazillion other, reincarnated as the Villainous shows that are better than this one. The characters are a step below the average, the story is a step below average, it's just... Even the romance is a step below average. Again, it's not bad, but it's also just not interesting even a little bit. I do think it has an okay sense of humor here and there. I think the jokes land if you're a 15-year-old girl, but the Yumiella is not an interesting protagonist. She's just not. The fact that she lacks self-awareness to a degree is, I think, supposed to be funny, but it's not really. It's only funny in a few specific cases where they actually set up a joke. Making it her whole character where she doesn't realize how strong she is, it really doesn't make her compelling. And even her interactions with the other characters, the only compelling interactions in this whole show, maybe some between her and Patrick, but I actually thought the interactions between her and the blonde girl were better. They were just charming and cute. Again, there are a gazillion other shows of this exact thing that are just better. I do appreciate that it sort of resolves everything in one season. So, again, I like that about it. I've said it before, I like shows that start and wrap up in one season, but I think the escalation of the craziness and, her earning the trust of her classmates, I think the pacing on that and, the way she does it is done pretty well. But, I mean, that's, the bare minimum, right? Because I really don't think there's anything other than that's even remotely compelling about this show. Even the fucking Demon Lord, who is maybe an ancestor of hers or something, he's gone. Who fucking cares? You just know she's never going to struggle with anything, right? Even if you know the guy, even if you always know fucking Naruto or Luffy, whoever, even if you already know they're gonna win, at least make it interesting. I don't know why I compared this show to One Piece, but there you go. Okay, the foolish angel dances with the devil. You know what? This was okay. It could have been better and it could have been worse. The thing I appreciate about this one is that it has a concept and it sticks to it. You got a guy going to school pretending not to be a demon. He's a demon. You got a girl who's an angel pretending not to be an angel going to school. They're enemies not by natural law, but it turns out they fall in love with each other after, hanging out some. Cool, that's it. That's the show. Right? That's it. That's what you sign up for, and that's what you get. So, great. I appreciate that it's concise in what it does and what it wants to do. I think the romance development is done pretty well. I think the characters aren't bad, and the little climax with Amane's brother, and not bad at all. And some of the romance is some of the romantic scenes are actually kind of charming, and the way they try to one up each other feels kind of Kaguya-sama-y, but whatever. It's fine. It was all right. I didn't dislike it at all. I really don't have that many complaints. You get what you sign up for, and it's got a decent sense of humor to boot. So, great. Good stuff. Okay, the weakest Tamer began the journey to pick up trash. I mean, this one was actually a little more compelling than I thought it would be. I don't know to what extent it's an isekai, right? Because the last episode still hasn't come out as of the time I'm recording this. But the main character like hears voices in her head, which is not unusual, I guess. Just 2024, but like, you know, of her memories of her previous life sort of surface occasionally, so she's not like actively have the memories or consciousness of someone else. Weird. That's a weird thing, but I guess like for the most part, it's just like this girl who is like, you know, outcast from her home for not having an ability or not having a good magic ability or whatever, like having a gift, whatever. Like, she's just on a journey and finds a way to make friends, like people who care about her and will, you know, even disregard the fact that she's starless or whatever the fuck she is. Like, even though she's like 9 and like all of these other people are adults, I guess maybe there's just like a parental instinct around this child, but whatever. Like, it's not that bad. Like, I don't hate it. Even like the sometimes like the story beats that it throws at you are unexpected and kind of contribute to Ivy's depth as a character, and her interactions never feel too forced or anything. Like, this was all right. Like, I don't really have too much to complain about here. The sort of like adventuring nature of it, where she's like kind of always going somewhere different, and there are many characters who stick around long, like, that's fine. I actually think this is one of the ones that kind of pulls it off a little better, because even like from the very beginning you kind of know that's what you're getting into. Like, it sets it up that way. So yeah, like, this one's alright. Like, I think Ivy's a pretty solid protagonist, and like, even like the way she like tames the slime and the giant wolf thing, like, it's fairly endearing. So yeah, not much to say here. Like, it keeps you on your toes sometimes. Like, it's all right. Yeah. Okay, the Unwanted Undead Adventurer. Okay, there's so much just all right. Like, this one's like, this one's okay, right? Like, I don't have much good or much bad to say about it. Like, I do think the story progression is not bad for like a fantasy thing, like for kind of a meandering fantasy thing, right? Like, the setup is okay. There aren't really any particularly memorable characters. Like, even the protagonist doesn't really feel like he has that much depth to him. You do have his backstory revealed towards the end, which is nice and very much appreciated. Definitely adds necessary depth to that character, but yeah, for like, you know, there's a ton of meandering fantasy shows out there kind of like this. This one's all right. Like, in terms of that, it's in like the 60-70% range, right? Like, it's not bad. There are better ones, but there are also much worse ones of the sort of meandering fantasy genre. So yeah, like, I really don't have much to complain about here. The characters are okay. Like, a lot of the things that Rent does. But it sounds so stupid when you say it in English. Like, a lot of the things he does, like, they don't really contribute to some overarching narrative, but I think the way he interacts with other characters is fairly good. Like, I wouldn't call it endearing, but it is, like, it's not bad. So yeah, like, again, there's really nothing particularly memorable about this at all. There's just better of this. There's just better shows of this style. You don't even have to look past the fucking Skeleton Knight in Another World is just like a better version of this, you know? Like, so yeah, I mean, it's okay. I didn't hate it. Okay, Sasaki and Peeps. What a fucking roller coaster. Jesus Christ. I do think the sort of wild nature of this one, kind of like all over the place, I think it's probably better suited to a light novel. But for what it was, it really wasn't that bad. Like, there's just so much happening at any given time. Like, and he's like, even in like one episode, you'll just find that fucking Sasaki is going between like 4 different things he's trying to do all at once. Where the fuck is my Fan Feast logo? But yeah, like the characters really aren't that bad. Like, I think like sort of the setup and the premise is okay. Like Sasaki's like skills as a businessman like coming into play here sort of it works pretty well, makes sense. Like it's not bad. It just doesn't kind of it just feels all over the place, right? And like it also doesn't feel like there's an end goal. You know, there's no overarching narrative which kind of like takes away from the big world they're trying to build here, right? Like there's a lot of things happening and a lot of characters who like sort of have more concrete goals, but like when the main character is just like, yeah, I'll just get rich and like be able to buy my bird some steak. Like, I don't know. Like there's so much happening that feels like it should matter, but then you kind of see it for like 5 minutes and then you move on. And there are some like sort of, you know, there are problems or like conflicts that last for more than one episode, and like maybe have episodes totally dedicated to it, but they really like aren't super compelling. And again, this whole show just kind of feels like a mess. It can be a good mess at times, and I like there are some decent characters and it has a good like sense of humor, and I do think a lot of the characters are a little bit charming and endearing, and I do think like the sort of blossoming relationship between Sasaki and the bird and Peeps is okay. Like, you know, nothing is necessarily done poorly. It just feels like a mess because it's all over the place all the time. So yeah, like, and it's one of those like sort of meandering shows that if a character shows up, don't expect them to be around for very long. Like there was like that one like princess girl who like came to Japan for like a day or some shit. Like even what's her face, Rie Takahashi girl, who turned out to be like 16 or whatever. She doesn't really feel all that important to the story, even though I thought she was gonna, you know, be like the secondary character. There was clearly something supposed to be set up, and like there was teased at the end before season 2 got announced with the next door neighbor girl, which didn't go anywhere in this whole season, so we have to wait till next season, which is stupid. Like, there's just too much happening, and it never really commits to anything, right? Like, you know, if you've seen a seasonal roundup, you know I hate when a show doesn't commit to something. So yeah, there's just no real things that there's not a lot that sticks around in this show. It just kind of jumps from one thing to another really fast. It's not necessarily bad, but I can't really get into stuff like that personally. So I have a hard time complimenting them. Shows like this. So, but again, I don't think it's that bad. And I think I think once season 2 comes out, it'll probably be a more complete thing. Most likely. Alright, Ishura. What a mess. Like, I've never seen a show try to tell, like, 5 different stories and then converge them at, like, episode 10. I mean... and the whole world is a mess. Like, not even just in terms of, like, the actual what's happening in the world being a mess, but, like, the world building is a mess. Like... the way it builds this whole world is crazy. Like, again, this show feels meandering because it tries to do 8 gazillion things at once. Wow. What is gonna happen in season 2 of this? Like, I'm baffled. I originally dropped this after episode 2 because episode 1 was like, you know, it's about the one guy, Yukikaji guy, who came in and, like, fucking beat up a giant robot with a sword or whatever. And, there was that one girl who's like, why am I always the one who survives the fires or whatever? And she was like, you know what? I hate you, but I'll guide you to the city or whatever. And then the next episode, there was, like, a bunch of dragons, and they were talking about war strategies or some shit. And I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? Is this the same show? And it's like, ew. And then there's the guy with the princess the blind princess. I don't remember what her deal was, but then there was the girl with like the super omnipotent ability, like she can rewrite the world or whatever. And then there's like the teacher girl trying to make sure she doesn't go ultra nightmare mode and destroy the planet. And then there's like some other weird fucking lady who's in charge of the something or other. Like, what a mess! What an absolute mess of a show! I don't know what it was trying to do. Like, I don't know what the story was supposed to be. There's like a demon lord and he's like out there or some shit, or like, no, there's a hero out there and the demon lord's dead or something. I don't fucking know! Shit is fucking wacky. Like, a lot of the, like, when it does fight scenes, right, it does them good. Like, let's not get it twisted. But the narrative is trying to, like, put together a 100-piece puzzle with 20 pieces. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, I don't get it. Like, there's just stuff I don't have. Like, it just feels like I'm grasping at straws for no reason. There's, like, dragons and shit, and, like, they talk with telepathy or whatever, and, like, one of them really likes some girl who sings, and what the fuck? And there's this guy who, like, is like, I'm invincible, I'll never die. And then there's a girl who in a robot suit or whatever when she was naked, and like the guy like was like, you'll never kill me. And then the guy with the sword, Yuki Kaji, was like, you know what, I will kill you. And then he does. This, I mean, maybe it'll make more sense in season 2. Gushing over magical girls. I don't know why I added this to my list. I don't know why I'm covering this. I should have just watched it and moved on with my life. I'm playing with fire right now. I have to be very careful what I say. I mean, it was ridiculous in a good way. I actually think there's a surprising amount of character development. The interactions are pretty funny. It has a good sense of humor. The voice acting's good. I gotta stop there. Just, like, be prepared. If you're gonna watch this, just meditate for, like, 15 minutes before you do. Just, like, come in, like, ready for anything. I mean, like, the story progression is not, like, abhorrent. There's some, like, good world building here and there. Like, there's some interesting stuff. Like, there's that one girl who, like, was trying to assert her dominance over the evil organization and, like, got kicked out by Inormina or whatever the fuck her name is now, and like they like trying to convert these like other characters. Like there's that the little girl and she had like backstory or whatever, and it was like, oh wow, that's something. She has character, like even like the pink, was it pink? Maybe pink and blue. The magical girls had some backstory too, and I was like, wow, yay, great. They're characters with some amount of depth to them. You want to talk about exploring depths, and in perhaps my wackiest transition to date, Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. Moving to two-cours now. Okay. Let's not get it twisted. Frieren is incredible. It really is. I think out of the probably coming up on 200 shows I've covered on these seasonal roundups, this is objectively the best one. Even better than Summertime Render and Blue Lock, which I obviously loved to death, both of them. This is a better anime in terms of just the complete package, right? Like, Summertime Render was very good as well, but like, in terms of, in that regard, but just not even in terms of just the complete package. Like, Frieren feels like the apex of anime creation, if that makes sense. There were no compromises. Like, every single person who was doing their work on this show got what they wanted out of it, it feels like, right? Because the animation is stunning. The writing is compelling and interesting. The pacing is nice. The story is good. Like, the characters are well done and well voice acted. Like, they're well portrayed. Like, the like the storyboarding and like the perspectives and like the actual like execution of the visuals and like the animation and the fight scenes and shit like that. It's all like there, right? Like nobody made any compromises on this show, and it's incredible. It's just a really it's an nigh unmatched anime project, right? Because it's just 28 episodes of like nothing but like exactly what you want out of an anime like this, right? Like so if you want to hear us talk about, if you want to hear me kind of talk a little bit more about Frieren, we reviewed it over on my podcast. I'll leave a link to the video in the description and at the end card. But this is not my thing, right? Frieren, I don't really care that much about the story, right? Like, the stories I typically care about are, like, the more long, drawn-out shonen stuff. Those are the ones where I'm like, fuck yeah, this is my shit, like, I love those stories. Frieren was a little more meandering for me personally, but there are a lot of people who do prefer this kind of anime, where it's more casual and you don't have to, you don't have to tune in for 500 episodes. Like I said, it's just 28 episodes of exactly what you want. Like, it's got some longer arcs here and there that like kind of have an overarching narrative, like with the first instance of demons, and then eventually culminating with Aura showing up, and then there's of course the first class mage exam arc, which goes for the whole second core, and then aside from that, there's always the sort of supporting, like the backbone of Frieren, which is the journey with Himmel and all of the heroes, that kind of just backs up everything that happens in that Frieren, Fern, and Stark do, and sometimes Zine. Also, in this show, there's a lot of interesting characters. Like, a lot of, like, characters that feel really unique and like have a very specific role to play in like the way how magic works. Like, they change your view of like how magic works in this world. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Specifically, there's one character. The point is, the way magic works is really unique in this, is like, that's my point, and it really helps. The first class mage exam arc really helps convey that, and it's very cool. And I think the first class mage exam arc, like all of the characters in there felt like they should have been there. Like, they felt like they belonged there and they didn't take away from anything. Like, it was just really well done. Like, there's a lot of interesting characters who all feel like they play a specific role. It doesn't really feel like there's much overlap there. And on that note, sort of, the way Frieren has set up his demons it's really interesting and unique. Like, I can't name another show who has the demons kind of so interestingly portrayed, uniquely portrayed. It feels very... It's probably because, right, like, it's beyond Journey's End. Like, Frieren already knows the deal, right? Like, obviously the demons are lying no matter what they say. They're just... There's no way they can really empathize with humans, and, like, because of that, it kind of makes for a lot of interesting interactions with the demons, and I really like how they're portrayed in Frieren. It's really cool. Very unique. Like, it's just really well crafted, front to back. Like, the characters are... It's great. Really cool. A lot of really... Even, like, a lot of those minor characters. Kane Loine. Actually, mainly just those two. Because they're at Frieren's party. But, like, even their little bit of backstory was... It made them endearing and charming. And they were charming even before that. But, like... They're just... Nothing's overblown. Nothing's over-exaggerated. A lot of the interactions feel natural and fun. Like... It's nice. I really like all the characters. Like, I don't think I even dislike a single character in this show. It's just so well crafted. Everything about it is just, like, nigh perfection. Like, it's so good. It's exactly what you want out of this kind of anime. Like, if this is your thing, this is it for you. Like, you're going to love this show. It feels different than a lot of other anime because the writing of the characters never feels overblown. It never feels like they're overreacting at all. In some cases, it might feel a little forced, where they're like the kind of non-reactions of every single character. You know, there's not like a single character who doesn't just kind of knock like have these non-reactions to everything that happens. But even then, it just makes it stick out even more in that sense, and mostly it's in a good way. Because there are a lot of anime watchers who are turned off by the loud, annoying motherfuckers. So it's just, everything about it is just good. Like, there's no, like, again, I said this in the podcast review, there's no buts about this show. It's just everything you want. It's just everything you want and nothing you don't, pretty much. Like, the characters it introduces feel like they play a role, like, at least in sort of helping Frieren understand the essence of human connection, and like her realizing the importance of relationships and like helping other people realize that, and because that's what it's all about. Like, Frieren is really based on human connection and like the fleeting nature of human life and that kind of thing, which makes it sort of sad in a way, but it's also really beautiful. So, and that's not, again, nothing about that was sarcastic. It's just straight up the truth. So if you like this kind of thing, you're gonna love Frieren, period. Moving on. Shangri-La Frontier! This shit is fucking awesome. This is a damn good two-cour. Like, again, it doesn't really feel like there are a lot of wasted episodes here. This might be, like, the apex of, like, fucking, I guess, full dive VR game adventuring sort of thing. Like, you have, like, SAO, Beaufry, that kind of thing. This is a step above. In every category, in my opinion. Not just, like, the animation is just on another level entirely. Like, maybe only some of the SAO movies can even compare, but I do think it's overall better. Like, in terms of, like, story and, like, the progression of it and the pacing and even, like, the world building, really solid throughout. Kind of reminds me of Blue Lock in some ways, because again, a lot of it's like centered in this one, in the game, right? And then there are sometimes, very rarely, things happening outside the game where people are sort of interfering with what happens in the game. Like, you know, the people who are in control of that. Like, yeah, so the characters are really fun. Like, all of the interactions are super endearing. Like, I love how the characters interact in this. It feels really natural. Like, it feels like actual gamers talking, like their enthusiasm, in that terms, the voice acting in this is superb as well. Like, the fucking, like, how they accomplish their tasks, like the main three, how they accomplish things, and like the sort of like persistent nature of Sunraku, like how he's always like trying to overstep his boundaries a little bit and like go and dive into things head first where he probably shouldn't, but sometimes, most of the time, it pays off because of his persistence and his like his crafty nature. So, and the animation is damn good in like almost every episode. So this is one of my two favorites of the fucking banger set of two-cours in this one. We'll cover the other one shortly. But man, this is damn good. Just front to back, a damn good show. Like, if you like the full dive setting where it's a video game and these characters are just kind of having fun, there's not too much in the way of like compelling narrative, but there is some compelling narrative, surprisingly, within that world. And it is, maybe it's a little bit hard to be like, this is so, like, get super into the story, because it is a game and like these are technically NPCs, so that does kind of add a layer of like, you don't really want to get, like, you don't get super invested in it, like there's sort of like a barrier almost. But fuck it, man, like it was really good. Like, it's a damn good show. Like, the animation is surprisingly good, the fight choreography is solid throughout. Like, it also never leans too heavy on like it being a video game. Like, there are definitely video game mechanics that are used throughout, but like, it's not, it never just tries to fucking spit in your face that, yeah, it's a video game. Like, when there are like stuff like inventory and that kind of thing, it's used very sparsely and in a way that makes sense. So it's just, the immersion is definitely there. So it's definitely a little slow paced here and there, and that's probably my only complaint. Like, it's really not much to complain about at all. Like, it's a damn good show. So yeah, definitely recommend this one, 100%. Good fucking shit here. All right, Ragna Crimson. conflicted feelings, because it's mostly good. This one's mostly good. I just sort of have a hard time, like, once it starts getting into other characters, I kind of struggle a little bit. Especially because, well, I don't know, it hasn't ended yet, so I will be eating my words almost certainly, because I have I have a hard time imagining they won't come back to this in the final episode. But the setup of Ragna Crimson, like, when you get a show with a double-length first episode, you kind of know you're about to get something wacky. And the first episode of Ragna Crimson is pretty cool. I think it sets it up really well. For the most part, I think, like, the story progression, like, it definitely feels hasty in some places, but I also think it's done in a way that it's obviously meant more to keep you on your toes, as opposed to be, like, rushing the story, right? So I appreciate that about it. And I do think, like, a lot of the characters and their motivations totally make sense, especially the main two, Ragna and Crimson. Good shit there. I like the wrench in the system that the Silverine Princess throws in the second half, where she kind of even changes Ragna's motivations, but it's still the same goal, just different motivations. This show even has some pretty solid animation from time to time. Definitely not all the time, but from time to time it does have some pretty impressive things. I'm looking at you, episode 8. Honestly, episode 8 of this show is like when Ragna fucking goes Ultra Nightmare mode on Ultimatia. Like, I was hype. Like, it sets it up really well. It sets up the whole world really nicely. It sets up the premise and like the Ragna's abilities right from the get-go. It's overall done pretty well. It's just like they start getting into, it almost feels like more technicalities towards the second half when there's just all-out war against the dragons. And there's a lot of characters who kind of feel like the author intended for them to get development, but it feels kind of half-assed, which just feels like it takes away from, seeing what Ragna and Crimson are doing. But there are a lot of characters, like, sort of minor characters who also feel like they add to the story. So, like, I appreciate that. Like, it kind of struggles to balance everything, this one, but for the most part, I enjoyed watching it, and even, like, the sort of antagonist developing, like, and trying to adapt to the presence of Ragna makes sense, and, like, it's cool to see the, it's been very cool to be, like, at the climax of this season and seeing Ragna facing off against the lightning dragon guy. And so its build up here was nice and, like, pretty well done. So, like, overall, it was pretty solid, I thought. It just, like, kind of struggles to balance all of the things that it wants to do, and a lot of the fight scenes are sluggish in terms of animation. But yeah, it's overall pretty solid. So I don't have too much to complain about. But yeah, definitely not bad at all. Okay, the Apothecary Diaries. I 100% stand behind saying that Mao Mao is the best protagonist of all of the all 5 of the two-cours. Maybe only by a slim margin, but I do think she's the best one. She carries this show. Of course, the animation and visuals are beautiful, of course, and I do think Jinshi's an okay character, but Mao Mao carries. Like, she is one of the most endearing protagonists I've seen in quite a while. Like, you just want to root for her immediately. Like, you just want to like, she is one of those characters that immediately you just want to, like, you want to be like, if anyone hurt her, I would kill everyone in this room and myself. You know what I mean? Like, you just feel drawn to her, like, immediately because of just how genuine she comes off to the viewers, and, like, how she is constantly, like, adapting to her situation and, like, doing her best in her own way, and how she always gets super excited about the prospect of new medicine and that kind of thing. Like, she's just very, genuine and sweet, and like it comes off so clearly. It's conveyed really well, and even I think the mysteries that she gets tangled up with, like it doesn't really, there's not much that really contributes to an overarching narrative, but it all does contribute to sort of the depth of Mao Mao's character, and even sometimes the depth of Jinxi's character, or adding to the world around her. So it's definitely fun to watch every week. I really enjoyed it, and it's beautiful. Like, it's a fucking beautiful show. The visuals are stunning. So good shit overall. Like, it's the mystery elements are done pretty well, and like how Mao Mao takes action is unique in each one, and even like the convergence to her finally coming face to face with her dad, compelling. I really liked it. So yeah, like I don't really like I've said this before, I don't like the trend of like, would you call this a shoujo? In this sort of style where the trend, the sort of trope, I guess, where the love interest, the male love interest of the protagonist is, by the end, he's sort of like reduced to his only personality trait being that he is down bad for the protagonist. Because that kind of feels like what happened to Jinshi. Even though it's pretty obviously like not, like he does have, is a little bit more to the guy, and he does have like his own reasons for doing what he's doing, but the way it drives home in like their final scene together, where like all he is just like, you can't be going out by yourself and worrying me. Now let me carry you bridal style back to your room. Like, come on, man. Like, she's gotten mixed up in like how much shit already. But yeah, and the traditional setting of it is really nice. It's very distinct. I like it a lot. Yeah, everything about this show is really well put together. Just really good shit overall. So if you like the mystery stuff, or you like shoujo, like some decent romance here and there, or if you just like fun and sweet protagonists, you're gonna love Mao Mao. She's awesome. So yeah, and like even the way like the sometimes like the brothel girls play into it, and like the backstory with her dad and her mom, like there's some good stuff here. Good world building, good development of the lore and shit like that. Really solid. Okay, Undead Unluck. This might be my favorite of all of the two-cours. This was really solid. Just really strong. Like, the art style is beautiful. A lot of the animation looks really good. And I love the story. Like, the way the world building and the story of this are so unique. A lot of it, like, I know it's a Jump manga, and I started picking it up since this ended. But it was always kind of those ones I'd kind of strayed away from, because I wasn't sure what I was going to get. But it's wonderful. Like, especially Fuko. Fuko, like, it's kind of driven home by the anime itself too, but like, she is such a wonderful protagonist. Like, just seeing her development throughout is just so heartwarming. And it feels warranted as well. Like, especially given like how this show is set up, like how the story is set up, where she's like this girl who is in a seemingly completely hopeless situation, where completely devoid of other people, important people in her life, and like she's practically responsible for their deaths in the first place, like her family dying and like a lot of her close friends, like bad things happening to them, and then she meets someone who's essentially immune to that, like the unlock ability, and those two together are presented an opportunity to kind of help change the world and for the better. It's like, it's really nice, and especially the way like the negators work, and like all the different negators, the Yumas, and the additions, like to the quests and stuff, like the world quest, and then eventually, I don't want to spoil too much because I really like this one, but the eventual reveals about the world itself later on, it's so unique. It feels so distinct. I don't think I've seen a lot, I can't name another anime off the top of my head that does stuff quite like Undead Unluck. It's just really well put together, well thought out story. A lot of the action sequences are done really cool. The antagonists feel like they're justified. Latla's really fucking hot. Like, I have nothing to complain about, right? Like, okay, that's a lie. Literally the only downside of this show, in my opinion, is that it's practically riddled with flashbacks. That's it. Like, and it really is not even that bad. It's definitely not intolerable. Like, the flashbacks are just kind of like, there are just maybe a couple instances where I was like, oh, that was 2 episodes ago. Like, you don't have to show this to me. Other than that, like, I have practically no complaints. Like, I think the pacing was solid. Like, the spot of the story where it ended was nice. Like, I was really drawn in by this one. It's very cool. The world building, the characters, like, especially the character interactions are very cool. Like, a lot of the character development as well. Like, Tatiana is really compelling, I thought. Even seeing, like, kind of snippets of what happened to Rip in his past and stuff like that. Of course, Izumo and Andy's development throughout, and, like, seeing Andy's past, very cool. Like, even, again, I think a lot of the animation fight scenes, really impressive. Like, definitely better than I was expecting. And I love the art style of this one as well. So, I mean, guys, Latla, I'm cooked. Oh, man. No. But yes, but like, I'm cooked. Anyway, it was really good. I really liked this one. I don't really understand why a lot of people, like, on Twitter and shit, are saying the anime flopped. I disagree. I really liked it. Like, front to back, I really liked it. Like, I think the pacing suffered because of the flashbacks, and that's about it. That's really about all I would have to complain about. It feels really unique and interesting, and the storytelling is really cool. I do think some arcs kind of, like, it feels like they kind of stumble a little bit. Like, I think, especially, like, the manga one kind of felt a little bit weird at the start, but it the way it resolved, I think, made up for it. So, but yeah. This one's really good. I really liked Undead Unluck.
Okay, Mashle, part 2. I love Mashle. I do. Like, no, we're kind of at the point, like, the stakes are escalating. We've seen most of the characters at this point, and it finally introduces, like, the main antagonist of the show in this one. And it's just, this is one where it's very, like, it's pretty much exactly what you expect, like, and not much more. But that's a good thing in this case, because I do think it's funny, and it really does work. Like, Mashle has a great concept, and I think it's hilarious, and I think it's even compelling. Like, the story, I think it's not anything crazy. Like, it's kind of like Solo Leveling. Well, not really, but, like, the story isn't anything amazing or necessarily unique. It's like this, it's the premise that it's based upon that kind of makes the show what it is, right? And so, like, the story is just kind of like, yeah, like, it's serviceable, right? Like, it's not anything particularly special, but it really does work, and it actually makes sense within the world that Mashle has built. So it's just really solid, and I do think this sort of gimmicky, like, Mash does crazy shit with his muscles thing, I do think it was, like, most of the stuff was more impactful in the first season. Like, it was kind of like it had the shock factor to it still. But that doesn't mean it didn't work in this one, because it really did. And every time it's, like, creative, and there is some, like, scientific basis to it as well, even if it's just completely infeasible in reality. But it's It's really clever, it's really funny, and I like it a lot. Like, it's just, it works really well, all the characters are really funny, they all have, like, a very specific role to play. I don't think even, like, stuff like Lance's sister complex, I don't think it ever gets too annoying. I think it always lands at the right spot. So, I really can't complain. Like, all of the voice acting is wonderful as well. Like, the introduction of characters like the guy who sings or whatever, like the bald guy who sings, you know, the other Divine Visionaries playing a bigger role this time around. Like, it all just works, right? Like, it's a really solid world that's built, and is all supported on, like, the premise of, like, the guy who can't use magic almost seeming like his muscles are magic, right? So, I'm a big fan of this one. It's just, I love Mashle. I picked up the manga right after the first part, even like during the first part, like while it was still airing, and it ended in like the summer of last year. I like stories that like find a solid conclusion, right? So Mashle's great. Like it's not any more or less than it needs to be. So I hope it does get more down the line, but we've kind of seen a trend of anime adaptations of Jump manga getting two-cours, then getting cut off. But we'll see. You know, because I hope at least like just because this one has ended, I hope this one gets to continue at some point. But we'll see. I really like this one though. Really solid.
Okay, moving to sequels. The Dangers in My Heart, Season 2. Now, if you watched my spring roundup from last year, you know that I was kind of won over by this show because I was expecting to hate it in Season 1. I do think this is a step up from Season 1. And again, this is kind of like other shows of this style that I've covered in these videos, because it already had the ball rolling. Right? And it's because it already had the ball rolling, right? Like, we already kind of know the deal. We've kind of disregarded the whole weird-ass fucking, I want to murder her, but actually I'm in love with her. We've already kind of thrown that to the wayside. So we kind of know what we're getting now. And I actually do think, like, the development of the relationship between the main two is done really nicely. It's very heartwarming. Like, it's very sweet. Because they're both kind of in positions where sort of different positions where it kind of feels like they might feel like no one really understands them, and them both kind of going out of their way to accept each other for who they are despite all of their potential weirdness or anything like that. Like, it's very sweet. I really do like it. Probably not as much as most people. Again, I'm not a huge romance anime guy, but I do think it's very sweet. It's well done. Like, there's like the scenarios, you know, they feel interesting and appropriate for like who the characters are and like what they want to do and that kind of thing. Even a lot of the minor characters kind of feel like they play some kind of role, and like the sort of escalation of the romance between the main two throughout this season, of like them wanting to do more and more and spend more time with each other, and it's very sweet. Again, I was sort of won over with this, because I kind of, again, like this is not really my thing. Like, there are even other romance anime I prefer to this one, but I do think it's very sweet, and I do see the appeal. So if romance anime sort of is your thing, this kind of more slow, mundane, kind of slow burn sort of romance kind of thing is your thing, you will probably like this one quite a bit. There's a lot to like about it, I think. So the characters are really well portrayed as well. Like the just because again, now that we've left the weirdness behind, it feels like it's a lot more pleasant watching experience. Like they're pretty young, so like they're trying to sort out and deal with accept their feelings. They're not really sure what to do with them, that kind of thing. So just seeing them kind of fight through it all and develop their relationship in this sweet and charming way. It's good. Alright, Synduality Noir, season part 2. Not season 2, part 2. Yeah. I'm glad it's over. We did get answers to all of the missing pieces from the first season, which I appreciate, right? From the first part. There's a lot of, like, sort of missing puzzle pieces from the end of the first part, and now I've kind of got them all. So I appreciate that. And I even think, like, a lot of the kind of loops that this one throws you on are pretty interesting. Like, the story beats are cool, and, like, the backstory between Tokyo and Masked Guy, and My Lord. I'm just gonna call him that. And My Lord. Fairly interesting, and, like, how that plays in with the antagonist. And, like, even if it's a bit cheesy, like, the sort of main conflict being centered around the are they gears? The androids. Whether or not they should be how they should be treated. Like, it's a bit cheesy, but it does work. I think it feels warranted. And even, like, how Mystere and Noir work out the things happening between them, and, like, their relationship with each other, and their relationship with Kanata. It's not bad. I think Mystere is a bit annoying, but again, I think, like, how she's portrayed, and, like, her backstory as well with the old lady, it's all done pretty well. This one definitely felt a lot less meandering than the first season, which I appreciate.
Also, I think what happens with CL, I don't know how I fucking forgot about this, but the stuff that happens with CL is actually pretty compelling and interesting and really plays into the whole overarching narrative. So I like that. Go CL. And I like how it resolves as well with Noir actually, taking over Mystere's body when there's a conflict in the main body. So cool stuff. I like that. Thank you, CL. You have a beautiful voice. Rest in peace. I'm editing the video right now. Fuck, I can't believe I forgot to talk about that.
Like, and a lot of the missing pieces that were, we didn't have at the end of part 1, now we have. So it's a complete puzzle. So fair play to it. It's a complete experience now, and it's not bad. It's really not anything special. Like, I do think a lot of the fight scenes are done pretty cool. Like, the 3D is not atrocious or anything. It's usually not with mech shows, but yeah, it's alright. It's really not that bad. It's not that great, but it's not bad. Like, I really don't think there's any characters here that I'm, like, really invested in, right? Like, even the protagonist, Kanata, like, I don't know. He just doesn't feel all the way there for me. I'm trying to think in, what kind of viewer you would have to be to, like, kind of go out of your way to seek this one out. Like, I do think maybe if you're a fan of, like, the sort of Gundam-esque shows, you would like this one. But, like, I like the setting of it, and, like, the characters aren't bad, but a lot of the character relationships just are sort of half-assed, it feels like. But Maria's hot, so no, this one's alright. Like, it's just sort of, like, mediocre, right? Like, it's just kind of like, yeah, that was good. Like, I probably won't think about it ever again. But whatever. It was something. Alright, my worst enemy returns from the grave. Bottom tier character Tomozaki, season 2. I didn't really like season 1, and I didn't like this one. And that's not to say I think it's bad, because I have long since drawn a very clear line in the sand between what I think what I don't like and what I think is bad. Because there are plenty of shows that I like that I think are bad. And there are plenty of shows that I don't like that I think are not bad. So this is one of those, of the latter. If you've watched this channel for a long time, a lengthy number of years, you know that a while ago, many years, not many, but maybe like 2-3 years ago, when I first watched season 1 of this, I made a video titled Aoi Hinami is an actual psychopath. And you know what? I kind of thought I was going to have that dispelled. Because there was, like, shadows of something of, like, her backstory and then we didn't get any of it. So I don't like this show conceptually. From the very base of it, I just have a problem. Immediately, I have a problem. And it's not necessarily in the premise, but it's in Aoi. It's in her character. Literally, her whole thing is she's supposed to teach Tomozaki how to enjoy the game of life. And all of that is superficial bullshit that you could only do in high school because everyone's stupid and manipulatable. And like, literally all she is just a manipulative bitch. She's like, here's exactly what you should say to make this situation play out to your advantage. Let's not consider anyone else's feelings. If you can sway the mood in the room to your favor, you can do whatever you want. You can whip out your dick and start doing the helicopter for all you care, and we'll be like, fuck yeah, Tomozaki, woohoo! Like, here's Tomozaki, like, I don't know, listening to Aoi talk like an actual fucking sociopath and be like, yeah, alright, we'll write that down. Anyway, like, there are some okay characters. I think Tomozaki's an okay character. And like, even his interactions with some of the other characters, like, namely, I think the ones with that other, like, the hot guy, the Ikemen, I forget his name, but that guy, where they, like, his interactions with that guy actually are, like, some of the only ones that feel, and Minami, those are good too, but, sorry, his interactions with those two actually feel, you know, fairly good, and, like, you know, his, like, struggle to sort of figure out how to keep up with those two is, like, relatable to in some sense, right? All us introverts have been there. And I do think, like, some of the development of the characters, like, what's-her-face, the brunette with the short hair, you know, some, like, her kind of turning her situation with the bully girl around, there's some of it that's not bad. Just every scene Aoi, and I'm just like, alright, you can shut up now. And I don't like the fucking symbolism of the goddamn theater play where it's like, but I wrote this ending because I don't think we can get together, and then Tomozaki's like, no, fuck you. I'm gonna hold your hand and we're gonna start going out. And, like, even though I kind of felt like the show was directing us towards him and Mimi going out, but whatever. I don't care either way. Like, I just don't. And, like, it feels like, I don't know. It feels like a lot of the conversations, especially between Tomozaki and the girl he ends up dating, whose name I forget, I'm gonna find out right now. Fuka. Kikuchi. I can't call her Fuka. I'm gonna get confused. Kikuchi, like, their interactions, they just feel, like, so vague and convoluted, and, like, a lot of them where they're, like, talking about the play and shit, it's just, like, they never really feel like they go anywhere, and there's, like, a lot of, like, even, like, especially, like, the last 5 episodes where they're, like, revising the fucking play or whatever, I'm like, are you serious? Like, this is the show? Like, come on. There's just not a lot of scenes that I care about. Like, there's not a lot of scenes that are interesting or even endearing, or there's not even a lot of characters. Like, Mimi is, like, the only endearing character in this whole fucking show. Like, it's crazy. Hanabi's okay too. Like, and I like, and I like the way it ends with them and, like, the matching amulets or whatever. Like, that's cute, whatever. But, like, just the very setup of it is, I just have a problem. I'm inherently like, this shit, it's terrible. I don't like it. But I mean, that's just me personally. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a bad setup, and, like, there's like, I think there is room for it to be, like, a motivator to some extent to better yourself, right? Like, if you eventually come to you have some awareness where you're like, I should do some self-improvement. And this show can be, like, a catalyst for that, you know? Like, there is something to that. But every time Aoi speaks, I just want to, like, shove her into a locker. It's not even like as fan servicey as the first season was either. It's just like, you're in it. You're like, if you're here, you're locked in. Like, you're here for the characters or whatever. I feel like almost none of these characters fucking matter. Like, it's just, like, she's just a manipulative bitch. She just puts on a fake fucking smile and, like, fake personality so she can make friends, like, have a fulfilling youth. But what's a fulfilling youth if you're just gonna pretend to be someone else? Okay, Banished from the Heroes Party, Season 2. This was okay. Kinda like, I mean, you know, last year at this time we had, the Fruit of Evolution come back, and now we have this one coming back. I didn't hate it. This could have been, here's the thing, right? It could have been nothing, right? But I do appreciate the fact that sort of like it did fucking it went out of its way to introduce like some interesting elements here, like namely the new hero guy, the new hero kid who kind of was like had the hero's blessing and like was trying to like fulfill some like vague sense of responsibility, some like self-righteous piece of shit asshole sense of responsibility. You know, trying to adapt to it and not be like a little bitch where he's like, you're not the hero, I'm the hero, cope about it, like, you know, fucking cry about it, pussies, like, and eventually like kind of having, you know, Red and Reed show up with the annoying fairy, and like Reed takes care of her, and like this fucking Red taking care of the hero kid, and like Rudy playing into that as well, like sharing her experience. Like it could have easily just been like, here's Red and Reed fucking for 12 episodes, but there's something to it here, and like even like the hero's companions like sort of having to sort their feelings out. I think there's substance there, so fucking fair enough. Like it was all right. I didn't hate it. Like, you know, all the characters felt like they played a role and everything, and like there's no characters who are a waste of space like in Tomozaki. It's great. No, like not great, but it was all right. Like I didn't hate it. It was more than I expected. So fair play to that. There's some good substance to it. And like it kind of started with Red looking for an engagement ring, and then ended with him giving it to Reed, and it's like, yeehaw! That's it. That's fucking bookend storytelling right there. Now don't come back. Stay gone. You too, Tomozaki. How would you go self-help yourself to some fucking bitches? Okay, Classroom of the Elite Season 3. This was alright. I mean, the only really, like, noteworthy part of this was the end, not the end, the battle against Sakiyanagi. Yeah, like, it covered everything, like, in a way that sort of made sense, and, like, Season 2 was, I think, better, but, I mean, overall, like, the way, when you come into Classroom of the Elite at this point, you're kind of, like, you know you're getting, right? Like, the way it's like this big spider web of connections and people talking, and like how can you like what kind of it's just all the Classroom of the Elite is just a big chessboard, right? Because this is not like Tomozaki, right, where you Classroom of the Elite, you're supposed to manipulate people, like that's the entire point, right? Like you come in and expecting to manipulate people to your benefit. You're not trying to necessarily manipulate their feelings, unless you're Ayano Koji, but, like, in Tomozaki, it feels like always trying to manipulate their feelings, right? In this, it's like you're just trying to manipulate people's actions to your own benefit. And that's what Ayano Koji does. Well, at least if you're him, right? If you're just a regular kid, you're just trying to pass. But, yeah, like, all of like what especially like the major characters like Hirikita and Ichinose, all of the things that they go through sort of make sense. Like you know, seeing how everyone responded to like Ichinose being a shoplifter, which is the end of the fucking world apparently. Like Hirikita finally like you know, having the courage to stand in front of that class and sort of take a leadership role, and then eventually meeting her brother again, where he was like, actually Hirikita, actually Suzune, I don't hate you. It kind of rushed a lot of things and only showed, like, you know, it really only did what was really necessary, which is fine. And I think, like, everything that I did cover from the light novels is, like, you know, it contributed to what the story that needed to be told and all that, and, like, we got to see a little bit of the chairman, or the principal, or whatever, whoever he is, who, like, hates Ayano Koji, and is like, if you don't find the guy from the White Room from the incoming freshman, I'll put a dildo in your ass. And Ayano Koji's like, alright, bet. Yeah, like, again, you kind of know what you're getting. If you come into the class with the elite at this point, you're like, all right, I know what's gonna happen. It's kind of a little bit slow paced. It kind of meanders sometimes. It's a little boring, but it is sort of interesting watching, like, this whole spider web of influence sort of play out, where, like, everyone sort of knows everyone, and there's a lot of, like, key players on the board, and, like, a lot of, you know, everything that Ayano Koji does has meaning and intention behind it. So it's cool in that way. Like, there's also just a lot of, like, high school, hormonal, stupid idiots. Like, you know, What's-His-Face being the primary example. Well, two primary examples. What's-His-Face and then the guy who got expelled. The guy who looks like Adachi. The guy who looks like Adachi, and then the hot guy, whose name I forget. But, yeah, and I kind of... I don't know what I was expecting, but the whole dating angle where, like, Ayano Koji finally asks out Karuizawa, I don't know why I expected that to be more heartfelt than it was, but yeah, it ends exactly the way you think. It's like, I'm gonna ask this girl out, and if there's a god in the sky, I'm smiling right now, and then it pans up to his face, he's like... Anyway. Yeah. No, this is exactly what you expect. We're in season 3 of this shit now. Like, you don't come to me crying like, oh, this shit's boring. Yeah, of course it is. What do you think this is? One Piece? Alright, and finally, Blue Exorcist, season 3, Illuminati Saga, or whatever. Rising from the Grave, Blue Exorcist. New studio, which is fine. I'm glad to have it back, actually. Blue Exorcist is kind of like a weird enigma, because it kind of feels like an edgy show for younger kids who haven't, like, quite made it to their edgy phase yet. Because it sometimes, like, feels like it puts way too much emphasis on the most obvious shit. If I had a nickel for every time Yukio, or for every time Rin asked Yukio, hey, are you feeling okay? And Yukio was, like, stressed out, and he's like, no, I'm fine. I'll never tell you anything, even though you're my brother and I've agreed 10,000 separate times to confide in you. I won't be confiding in you. I would be rich. I would have, like, at least $2. So I would be $2 richer than I am right now. But, overall, this one was not bad at all. I didn't think it was as good as the previous 2 seasons, but... hopefully, we got another season announced, so that's good. It definitely shines a light on a few things, right? Like, we kind of have... I'll tell you what. Shima betraying and being a spy, I would never have seen that coming in a gazillion years. So that's a big loop it throws you for, like, almost immediately. And then the dude's back by the end of the season. They're like, yeah, we're friends. But also... diving into Izumo's backstory was definitely needed, because she's kind of the one who's been a lot of, like, the most aloof, standoffish the whole time, and so kind of earning her trust was definitely a necessary step of this. But yeah, like, just overall, definitely not bad. Like, it's a little slow paced probably, and the animation was a little clunky, but I mean, it's Blue Exorcist, and again, like, if you're coming back for season 3, you're kind of locked in, right? So it's I don't think it lets you down in any of those senses, right? Like, it's pretty much what you expect, and you know, every scene that Yukio's in, there's some amount of tension, but there's actually, like, a teaser by the end where Yukio's like, what does he say? He's like, I'm definitely gonna get as powerful as my brother, and he's like, fuck you, brother, I'm gonna finally jack off for the first time in my life and release all this pent-up stress. brother needs his dick sucked. But at the same time, like, you sort of get it, right? Because, like, Yukio has been, like, bearing the burden of being an exorcist since he was a kid. And, like, while Rien was kind of just being a goofball. So you kind of understand his feelings. His feelings are definitely justified. I just think, like, they put a lot of emphasis on things that, you know, a lot of other shows would do more subtly. So in that sense, it feels like it's made for little kids. But, like overall, I genuinely think, like, this one's pretty solid. Like, it's definitely not the best thing ever. But, like, the story, like, the story progression is done pretty well, and, like, a lot of, like, the struggles Izumo faces, it makes sense, and, like, you know, her feelings feel justified, and, you know, the whole thing of Rain and all of them going to seek her out and, like, rescue her from after she gets kidnapped by Shima. Good stuff. Just overall, like, pretty solid. Like, it's just kind of like we're in the groove now. I mean, I actually didn't see Blue Exorcist until, like, late last year, so I caught up, like, right before this season started. So I was in the groove, at least. But, like, you know, it's not the craziest shit in the world, but it's really, like, in terms of, like, jump series too, it's kind of like, it feels pretty mundane. Maybe not mundane, but, like, it just feels kind of slow, but it's not bad. Like, it's just, you kind of, like, it's Blue Exorcist, and you get what you get. It doesn't really need to, it's kind of nearing the point now where it doesn't really need to dive too much into the actual characters, and it can start focusing on the story. So, and I think with Yu-Gi-Oh! And his stuff coming up in the next season, hopefully most of that will just be resolved, right? Because a lot of the, like, conflict and tension between Rien and the others were resolved in the last season, in the first season and second season. So, yeah, like, good stuff. Like, definitely not bad at all. Okay, next season is going to be another big one. That's, like, 3 springs in a row that have been massive, but it's going to be a big one. So we'll see what happens. Some of them, there have been some shows confirmed for 2-cours and some not. So we'll see. We will see what happens. And a couple 2-cours from this season as well that we'll cover next season. So yeah, look forward to that. It's gonna be fun. Probably. Oh.